Hi all, let's have a look at game 12 of the World Chess Championship 2018. So this is the final game of the classical portion. So if this game is drawn, then there will be a tie-break on the upcoming Wednesday, which will be 4 rapid play games. So let's have a look at game 12. E4 from Fabiano. Magnus plays the Sicilian defense again. Knight f3, knight c6. We go into the Sveshnikov variation, one of my great favourite openings when I was young. So knight b5, d6, knight d5, knight takes, e takes. Now, Magnus varies with knight e7 from knight b8. So he'd previously played knight b8. So knight e7 is another main move in the position. c4, and now black has to be careful. Knight g6 was played. There's actually a trap in this variation. If black plays g6, then that's kind of near the end of the game after queen a4, threatening this vicious double attack, either knight takes d6 or knight c7. So what would black do? For example, bishop d7 has the beautiful checkmate, knight takes d6 checkmate. So this would be awkward. Queen d7, knight takes d6, knight takes f7. It's carnage, winning the rook over after taking the queen, then take the rook. So yeah, this is to be avoided. a6, yeah, knight takes d6 is double check and mate. So basically, black can't really play a move like g6. So knight. Also, let's check out a6 here just for fun. a6 doesn't kick the knight back because there's queen a4 pinning that pawn to the rook. So a takes is probably the best, just losing the exchange. Because if similar stories to before, bishop d7, knight takes d6, checkmate. Okay, so well-known trap, knight g6. Now queen a4 is played anyway, just to provoke bishop d7, which kind of creates a weakness of the last move. d6 isn't so covered, and that's hit now with queen b4. And Magnus plays bishop f5. And here, yeah, h4 is played with the idea of h5, and black actually plays h5. Also possible is bishop e7 here. This seems okay, seems balanced. So h5, and now we have queen a4 repeating, and queen b4 repeating. And it's possible that if Fabiano wanted a draw, he could play queen a4 here. I guess that would disappoint the fans, that having, especially the ones that paid to go there to the actual venue, queen a4 for a draw. But he played on. Bishop e3 hitting the a7 pawn. This is moved, protecting it as well. Of course, knight c3, queen c7, because this pawn is now attacked by the queen, so that's protected. g3, bishop e7. So g3 supports this pawn in advance now. f3, this is really interesting what happens here. f3, it does support knight e4, but it also clears up this a little bit, this second rank. There's only 2 pawns now in the second rank. And in fact, yeah, knight f8, this is going to be interesting very soon. But knight f8 is also interesting in its own right. Before, like a routine castling is avoided, in fact, black's priority is now the c5 square. The knight trying to get contact with that lovely looking blockade square on c5. So positional move. And we've seen that in at least 2 or 3 of the past games. Yeah, Magnus taking control of his castling, not automatic castling, but doing any necessary maneuvers to celebrate the use of the f8 square before a rook lands on there. Now we have knight e4, knight d7. So looking at locking down the c5 break from white and establishing a nice outpost. Bishop d3. Now black castles. Now it's possible that white could have just considered castling here on the king side, but there's an ambitious idea, rook h2, with the idea of supporting castling queen side, because then rook c2 will be good against b5. We have rook ac8, white castles queen side. So very interesting opposite side castling game has emerged. Very entertaining. So b5 is ready to be met at the moment with rook c2. It's not tried bishop g6, which makes way for the f pawn potentially. A slight downside sometimes is the e6 square. That's to be borne in mind though when playing f5. Rook c2, f5 is played. Now actually black stands pretty well. Knight f2 as in the game on move 24 might actually be technically not the best, but even the best move, which is knight g5, it doesn't seem that great for white here in this configuration. For example, bishop takes, knight c5, lovely outpost, queen d2, b5, just very aggressive. For example here, this is just black is doing fantastically well, big advantage winning. Yeah, it's very, very dangerous in this knight g5 line. If h takes g instead, then e4 and then f4, and this is also pretty nasty, opening up that bishop. For example, this position, there's lovely tactics now like this, f2, trying to queen the pawn with a big advantage to black, so black's getting material. So yeah, this is a very dangerous line after knight g5. Okay, we had a look at bishop takes g5. On h takes g, e4, bishop e2. Yeah, we've just had a look at that as well. So very, very dangerous line. So knight f2, black's actually doing really well. Knight c5 is played. f4, trying to lock down black's dynamic potential of this bishop on this diagonal. But it gives black a really comfortable position. It's basically ruling out white's strategic breaks on the king side to try and easily open up the position. So black's king is now safer after f4. But if it's not played, then say here, king b1, knight takes, and then f4, liberating that bishop. And it's kind of got a few pieces on a skewer here. So for example here, actually black can actually indulge with taking this h-pawn. There's a strong outside pass pawn potential as well in the midst of things here. But this is fairly unpleasant. You can see that black's king might not be that unsafe to like push this pawn to h2 and keep all this pressure with this bishop on this diagonal and the c-file. Black would be having a big advantage there after seemingly taking an irrelevant pawn, but it's not. It's pretty solid. So anyway, f4, you can see why this f4 might be desirable, but downsides have been introduced. However, a5, big shock. Black, it seems, has a fantastic position here. It cannot be denied, I believe. b5 is energetic, justifying a6. That seems to be what, it's geared up for this position. Immediate disasters, for example, here, if white plays c takes, knight takes d3 check, exposing, c2's collapsed, checkmate. So white has to be really careful. Say bishop takes c5, then this bishop on e7 is now liberated. It can do all sorts of things. It can hit the f4 when it comes to d6. It's blockading on d6. So for example, here e takes might be strongest immediately because the queen's looking at winning f4. And there's no problem here. Black can even be materialistic. But say white plays queen d2, trying to support f4. Then bishop d6, amplifying the pressure, putting the battery on f4. And look at this position. Black's dark square bishop, instead of being passive, is now rampant, and in fact can nick this pawn with a small advantage. So yes, it looks as though b5 is the critical move here. Let's see. I mean, what does white do? If bishop e2, then a5 is strong, very forcing, and if now queen takes b5, then this retreat traps the queen. There's nowhere for the queen to go here. The knight's covering a6, the bishop's just winning the queen. So that's a disaster. So this position, after taking, this is very close to being winning after b4. Not only there's the form pawn potential of the a pawn here coming down later, there's b3 potential, there's this diagonal potential. All of black's pieces, well, apart from the bishop on g6, they can get involved in a massive attack here. So for example, queen e1, b3, this is just a dream come true, this position. Black's just liberating all the pieces with attacking venom. This kind of stuff is just devastating. Where, yeah, this is just an example variation. picking up material if nothing else. It's just a huge position for black. So it's interesting why we'll get the truth one day. Why Magnus didn't play b5? We'll get the truth. Was it for ticket sales or something on Wednesday? Was it in his? No, I'm just joking. Okay, yeah, no, okay. Maybe he thought it was a bit risky. Anyway, so yeah, b5 wasn't played. More positional move was played. It's good to have positional play, a5, but it does kind of deny that kind of tendency, tactical dynamic players have to try and open up the position against the opponent's king. That seems to be denied here. Is that setting a good example necessarily? I'm not sure for budding attacking players out there. So queen d2, but yeah, maybe black's got something here now. e4, we have bishop e2, bishop e8. Black's still better, even in this position. King b1 is played. If knight h3, then bishop a4 is actually strong here, because b3, bishop takes is a disaster. There's a fork here. And also, interestingly, by the way, something I noticed, I thought the natural... Let's come to it. So king b1, instead of, say, knight h3. Let's look at knight h3 one moment. Yeah, if we move the rook, then we just lose the other one here. So that's no good. Okay, so some disaster variations there. So this move basically tries to take the sting out of bishop a4. And we have now bishop f6. And the natural thing, and this is something I did notice on the live stream, is that bishop d4 fails miserably here. Rook e1, they're very careful, rook e1 was played. Bishop d4 actually fails miserably to bishop a4. There's no time to take on f6 here, because of bishop takes c2 check, winning material. That's check and then take. And if white plays b3, then the funny thing is here, bang, bishop takes b3, knight takes b3, forking queen and bishop. So this is just winning for black, and this is actually a total disaster after the check, forking d4 and the check. Yeah, so this is just winning material, absolutely winning. So very, very important to play a careful move here, not just bishop d4, because of this lurking bishop a4 threat still. So a4, extinguishing the possibilities of doing that, of bishop a4. But that's interesting. g6, for example, this is also looking pretty tasty, even in this position, but it gets as though black might be taking some risks. This kind of piece sack, though, I mean, engines love it, but Magnus has to calculate everything, and this entails risk, this kind of continuation. But you can see that the black pieces can basically swarm over the white king, and in theory, this should be absolutely crushing, this kind of scenario, but it requires very precise calculation, and the stakes are probably, they're very uncomfortably high to do this kind of thing, with g6. But just for fun, let's have a look again. There's also, if black's not careful here, bishop g7, then that does justify the e6 square. White can do this, take on c5, then go on to e6 with at least equality. So black has to be reasonably careful here, but it seems in this position bishop a4 remains handy. So it's funny that move was kind of locked out by black, by Magnus himself, but here, yeah, it's definitely handy, bishop here. I mean, we can look at this variation again. Queen d7 appears to be absolutely the strongest idea, to go to a4. If a4 here, then this isn't so clear. Sorry, if a4, then rook g1, knight c5 isn't so clear. But with queen d7, it does seem as though this position is pretty fantastic. Now, if we go with rook a2, let's have a look at this with b5. We've kind of seen that. But if we instead of rook a2, knight g5, queen a4, this position is entertaining as well. White's just getting slaughtered. So it seems, the way to play this, if black was really up for a battle to try and get to the king, is actually g6 first. So this gives all sorts of possibilities. It reinforces h5. There's possibilities of putting more pressure later with bishop g7, the queen coming around to f6, and combine that with A4, A3. It's all very pleasant. So anyway, A4, which does give white basically the B4 square as well. G6 now, rook D1. On knight H3 here, this position is still really nice for black. For example, like this, holding E6 up. And then black, if white does play token moves, I investigated this position, I thought the form pawn actually wins. Even in this scenario, black can arrange basically a battery on the diagonal with queen and bishop and get this kind of situation with the form pawn, Thorn. Remember to watch out for the form pawn t-shirts, by the way, on my videos. I'm hoping that the t-shirts are ready. So anyway, this kind of thing, the form pawn would win the World Championship. Yes, all thanks to the form pawn here. So even with the pawn going to A4, it was ready to be a form pawn to make Magnus triumphant, world champion for another 2 years. That pawn was ready, but unfortunately, Magnus, I don't know, didn't seem up for a fight here. So after rook D1, rook A8, he actually offered a draw. He probably fancied his chances quite a lot in the rapid on Wednesday, and the draw was accepted. Let's simulate if the game continued. Take queen A3, which looks natural to try and stop the form pawn. On bishop D4, by the way, it seems as though knight D3 here is good, unveiling, sort of disconnecting to D4, so hitting D4, hitting the queen, so the queen's a bit of a target. So if here, then this is just really pleasant for black with the bishop pair. So that this kind of scenario is just extremely pleasant with minimal risk for black. So let's say queen A3, getting out of the tactical stuff a bit. Rook B8. It still seems as though black could play on in this position. For example, like this, there's bishop takes B2. This is all pretty nasty. Check, and then check. This is just nasty stuff. Black's like doing much better. Anyway, I'd like to say that I called it. I called the result. I thought that the classical would be drawn. I'm going to present you evidence on Quora now. This scene. What is your prediction of the World Chess Championship? And you'll note the update. I haven't updated it since November 16th. And I said the first 12 games will end in a tie, and after that Magnus will win the tie breaks at a faster time control, because his rating difference on rapid and especially blitz is much greater. He's much higher rated on rapid and blitz. Now, unless Fabiano has gone out of his way to pretend that he's not very good at faster time controls, maybe he's pulling off an Alekhine Capablanca. Alekhine kind of pretended he wasn't that great or a threat, and it was too late. Capablanca fell into that trap and maybe underestimated his opponents. Maybe this is going on here, and Caruana has been secretly beefing up his blitz chess and rapid chess without telling anyone. Maybe that's the big secret about to be revealed on Wednesday. But I just thought Magnus would be the huge favourite for the rapid, and especially the blitz. If you check out Magnus's intuition, even in bullet chess, he's dominant online. He's really it seems to be he'll be the world champion of bullet if there was a bullet official championship. But FIDE go up to, they do rapid and they do blitz, and he's been world champion at all 3 time controls. But Magnus's intuition is staggering. I think he's the most powerfully intuitive world champion we've ever had, and that's one of the reasons he has these 3 titles. So I think he's the firm favourite for Wednesday, but it also, of course, does increase the interest of the match in a way, and we're going to see, I think, some gory, some blood and gory on Wednesday. So these games, okay, they've all been drawn. That is a record in its own right, but let's see on Wednesday what happens. My favourite to win is now firmly Magnus Carlsen. Who's your favourite, Magnus Carlsen or Fabiano? Leave your comment and why you think that's the case. Okay, if you enjoyed this analysis and the analysis in general of all the games, you can actually, if you click the top left box, you can become a member at chessworld.net, play with the YouTubers. You can also check the YouTube analysis of all the World Championship games from the improved menu, learn from the masters. And I might even do some puzzle books pretty shortly, which will be available especially to full members. Anything like that interactive will be available to full members. So please consider becoming a full member at chessworld.net. There'll be some goodies relating to the World Championship coming soon in the pipeline. Okay, comments, questions, donations, see the description box. Like, share, subscribe, especially hit that notification bell when you subscribe to get notified. All really appreciated. Thanks very much.